Hi, Steve.
Hey, Jim.
Na 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 na. Hey,
Hey, hey,
hey.
hey, goodbye. Yeah, it's time.
And welcome once again to Two Guys Talking About Records, a vinyl community podcast where we two guys get together each week, normally and from now on, virtually. But today, you're sitting right here
In the studio,
in the store, live.
Yes.
Well, live-ish for us at
Yes.
least.
True.
So to explain, we said goodbye to you a few weeks back.
Yeah.
I'm going to look over here occasionally, so please forgive us, dear viewers. We said goodbye to you, but this is truly the goodbye day, is it not?
Well, we're thinking it's going to be kind of like a bad penny. It just keeps showing up. Oh, you're there again, huh?
Well,
But yes, it should be it. We officially load that the truck comes in on Wednesday to load us up.
and you are gone from Michigan and transplanting officially to Colorado.
Yep, I get a new driver's license, which in Colorado you are not allowed to smile and show your teeth on your driver's
Really?
license. No, you can't go, hey, no.
That's because usually if you get pulled over, you're unhappy about it, so
I
they don't
guess.
want
Teeth, throw everything off. Don't show your teeth. I was
Be
looking at my
careful.
kids' driver's license. I go, why do you guys look so crabby? They go, well, they don't really want you to smile and show your teeth. Okay.
Well, those of you who are new to this, my name is Jim, and I'm a record store owner, if we haven't gotten to that yet.
I'm Steve and a record collector in
And
transit.
in transit, and the ongoing saga of Steve's big move. Holy cow, retirement, not retirement, big
Yeah.
move to Colorado.
Yeah.
And this is truly it today, though.
It is, yeah. We're doing everything. Our house sold extremely fast in 2 days. We had 3 offers, so that went quick, and it was really, I mean, it just took a big weight off our shoulders. I signed, the lease on our rental house that we're going to rent for a year or two, so that's all done. Movers just say it takes about 10 days to get there.
I don't quite get that, but they take, well, obviously you don't want them speeding with all your stuff.
Yeah, true. And I guess they just keep loading that truck up one place to the next place to the next place. So it depends where you're at in the trip. If we're at the end of the truck, maybe then they got to unload them all. So
So there's actual other people's stuff inside of this. That's
yeah,
okay. I didn't realize that.
So it's they charge you by the amount of boxes and space you take.
Wow.
Yeah.
And luckily for you, all your boxes are records. They're not charging by weight, is what you're saying.
It's
at
a
least.
lot of records.
Wow.
When I did that, I go, that's about 100.
And you are still, we did that episode on essentials a few back, and you still have your essentials with you that are being
Been
transported
playing them at
in your
night.
okay.
You bet. Yeah, take them out. I think I'll put the stereo system in my car too, just so I get to my kid's house. I can set it up and play it. I just, you get these shakes when you don't. It just throws my night off. I don't have any music to listen to unless I, pull it up on, stream it or something.
Well, we are looking forward to the series of videos, especially the first one from your new record room for your wearing your Sunday morning
Yeah,
show.
that's a beautiful T-shirt. Absolutely gorgeous.
So I'm sure you're going to chronicle that adventure, not only from the move there, but once you start getting stuff set back up.
Yeah, I will. Definitely.
Well, I'm going to miss you, but we're looking forward to your new adventure as much as you are, I would imagine.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get settled in, with a new job for my son and learning what I need to do. So I mean, it's been actually kind of exhausting. Retirement sucks.
Hey, but you haven't had to don a Speedo yet and scrub a pool.
No, not yet. But I have that ready to go.
Well, you know what? We've been talking about a move. This is a vinyl community podcast, so to speak. Today, by the way, it's just going to be a little bit of a potpourri episode. With Steve here. We're going to say goodbye. We're going to talk about some turntables, talk about Record Store Day, which is consuming the greatest deal of my time in the past week and for this next week. But as we do every week, let's kick off with our recent acquisitions. And even though you are kind of in transit, you still do have some stuff coming in, right?
I do. I had this came in from Third Man Records. So when I came home, there it was. And this is the Elvis Sun 45s. And so when I did that record store tour at Third Man Records, these are what they were making.
Oh, okay.
So
wow.
This is what they were producing. Comes with that. It comes with foam. That's cool. Who doesn't love a little
pack
foam?
it safely.
That's all right. mama. So we got a patch. It comes since they made it into real 45s, they gave you a insert to put in your 45s. It's quite heavy. I mean, that
Third
is,
man adapter.
yep. We have Sun postcard, and then of course the 45s, and they're look at the facts inside. Oh, there's a little book here on Elvis.
That is very cool.
And then we have 1, 2, 3, 5 little 45s. And these were all what he made for Sun.
And that's what's extra cool is you saw them making those.
I did. Yes. And from punching these out, because they were doing this manually on a press, every single one of them. And yes, and with all the color. So we got That's All Right, which is his big hit, Good Rockin' Tonight. Milk Cow Blues Boogie. How about that one? You're a Heartbreaker. I left, you're right, she comes. I don't know a lot about Elvis, quite honestly. I mean, I used to have every one of his box sets, Mystery Train, but I never was a big Elvis fan. But since I'm part of this club, I get this. So
you choose the vault one for that.
I do.
One.
Yeah. And so cool. There you go. Sometimes you get what you want, sometimes you don't. But I mean, it's really cool packaging. I mean, they really did a nice job. It's really nice. It's like $75 for that little thing, though.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take up much space. So you think
it does not.
That's a plus.
Yes.
Win-win.
And I picked up a few items at a record show that I did in Denver. The Modern Lovers, their first album, Television's first album, Marquee Mood, and the Cramps' Bad Music for Bad People. Now, I did a video on that because I thought I was, hitting some first pressings. Oh, no. But the prices were like first pressings or something. So yeah,
it goes back to our discussion on record shows themselves and how you got to really, you're in a rush, you feel like sometimes because there's a lot of other people there, I would imagine.
It is, you're all trying to get attention of the person that's there, and then you get it, and you're looking it over, but I didn't really look at the dead wax and all that. Again, there's just so many people, so you push through. And the very last one was the Cramps' Bad Music for Bad People, and that was the one album I was looking for, the only one, and it was the absolute last booth. As I was walking, I mean, the door was right there.
You got your first pressing finally for that, right?
Yeah. It is the unofficial yellow pressing, because Steve didn't bother to take it out and look at the freaking vinyl, because I was just adrenaline pumped in. Oh my God, yes. And, it's like a light shined on it, and there was angels that began to sing. It shined. It was like the Holy Grail.
Did the angels sing Goo Goo Ma?
Yeah. Well, when I got home, they sang "You Sucker."
Wasn't what you thought. But now, did you already have a reissue copy of that?
I did not. I mean,
okay.
I couldn't even. I haven't been able to find a reissue at a decent price. I mean, they're just so pricey. I had my original vinyl that I saved. I just guess I needed the album cover, but I paid too much for that. If I'd known it, I really would have talked him down, but I was getting ready to leave, and there it was. So I just, yeah, exactly. Mission accomplished.
Let that be a lesson, folks. Temper your excitement.
Yeah, it's very true. Do not let adrenaline take over.
Wow.
What about you, Jim? Well, I'm sure you had better luck.
I did, but it was a big week, but not number-wise. Again, heading into the Record Store Day event is always a little crazy around here. I'm fielding more phone calls from people who've got shipments coming left and right. I had a little bit of a panic because the shipment was supposed to show up on Wednesday last week. I was watching the tracking, and I checked the tracking Tuesday morning, and it said Wednesday. I get to the store Wednesday and check the tracking, and it said delivery attempted yesterday. So my UPS driver is great, but he went to unload and said, "Yeah, I didn't see you yesterday," so we left him on the truck. And then all of a sudden he's like, "Well, there's a box missing," and it was the Record Store Day box. He goes, "Somebody must have taken it back off the truck back at the warehouse." And I was like, "Oh no!" But he said, he made sure personally. He goes, "I'll find it."
Wow.
He knows how important it is.
Nice.
So we went back in that night, and I had it the next day. So, but now as well. We'll get to the record store day stuff. I'm sorry, I got off track. See, that's how the brain works during record store day week. But yes, I did have a couple of very interesting pickups this week. One is, and this the album cover, of course, it struck me a little very interesting here. Everything You Always Wanted to Hear by Sly Stone, but were afraid to ask for. So
That's
a little bit of digging on this, and this is a radio station promotion. You know how I like the radio station promo stuff. It is part of a series from Epic Records from the mid 70s on to introduce radio stations to other cuts that they wanted folks to play from some of these artists that were up and coming or, you know, playing really strong, in this case, Sly Stone. So this is essentially a greatest hits, but it's a promo only sent to radio stations. And they're not tremendously expensive if you go looking for them. I've looked for a few others, and there's a whole series of maybe about 5 or 6 of these, at least on Discogs. So this has got stuff like Dance to the Music, Higher, Stand, Everyday People, Hot Fun in the Summertime, Family Affair, and Time. So it's like got
the greatest hits.
It is the greatest hits. And there's some info on the back as well. And when you get into it here, let me click back on this. When you get into it proper, it even is a white label promo that kicks in there.
Nice.
So it's ticking all the boxes for me when you get to these. So seeing that, I was just like, yeah, this is a cool one to have that goes with all my other radio promo stuff. So
very nice.
Very, very gladly took that in. Now the other one is a big one, but I'm going to set up. I have a setup for this. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
What do you know about Testpressings?
I used to have a few. They make like 10 of them sometimes, and you know, a test pressing, obviously, then they make the major the metal plates.
Yep. But the Testpressings are essentially ones that they send in a lot of cases. If it's an indie artist, they send them to the artist. If it's a big band, it'll go to the artists, it'll go to the label executives, it'll go to probably some other promotional executives to make sure that the album is the way it is. I've got a few Testpressings in my collection already, ones that I'm really proud to have in. This is from my friend Brett Mitchell. It's a Testpressing from his album for the most part. I do have a copy of that as well.
Nice.
But you know, we worked with Brett on several occasions, and when it came time to press the album, they had, I think, 5 or 10 of these made, and he passed one on to me, and I was very, very
nice.
thankful for that to have. So, you know, when you know artists like that, sometimes it's cool to get the support. The other Testpressing I've got is a Testpressing for one of the Rush tribute bands from the folks that we work with in Scotland, from Rush Fest Scotland, Steve Brown. This was for the second one, The Stars Look Down, the tributes songs for Neil Volume 2. They sent me a Testpressing of that for all the work we did helping out and getting those shipped. So I was very thankful for that. And that gets me to this week's big acquisition. You ready for this one?
Yeah.
I found a Testpressing for Bob Seger's 7.
Oh, wow.
So this goes back. The album was originally released in 73, 74. But for some reason, this must be a Testpressing, I think, for a reissue from 77. There's a 77 date stamp on the label itself. Let me pull that out. It's a white label, not much to Testpressing labels. It just kind of identifies it, but the real identifier came through in the sheets that were attached. And this is the original sheet. It still says 74 on there, but the label says 77. But it's very, very interesting in the fact that it labels, it's just kind of a form they fill out. Bob Seger, they type in the catalog number and some of the appropriate dates, black vinyl, record size, 12-inch. The track listings are on there, producing credits and stuff as well, and just some other availables. Copies. Okay, so copies 2, and there's 1, 2, 3. It actually lists the names of people that these copies were sent to, and it looks like there's probably about 15 or so on here. So this was a good get.
Yeah,
it was a very
amazing.
Interesting find. And if you're unfamiliar with 7, this was, I believe, the follow-up from 74. I think it was the follow-up to Ramblin' Gamblin' Man.
Okay.
So I'm very pleased. You know, the burgeoning Michigan collection is always growing, and I'm really excited to have this in there. It's just really kind of a neat promotional bit of history. But Testpressings value-wise are tricky.
Yeah.
Because this one I found on Discogs, and there's no sales record. So that's right off the bat. That means that people that have them aren't getting rid of them. And there's one for sale on Discogs for $100.
Okay.
So I would put the value probably around in there, even though that this one's been on Discogs and hasn't sold for $100. It's still really upside down.
Sure.
So we'll see where it goes.
I used to buy some of those in my first collection. You would, I'd be on sites and the artist would offer, we have our test pressings. We're going to throw these up for sale. And I would buy a few of them. Yeah, but they were spendy to go, but I never saw their value really take off. Again, it's tricky because people aren't selling them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think what other artists do now, the two Rush Fest, the Rush tribute albums that have come about since this first one, they're on volume 4 now. They've really begun to see the value in that. And then they're selling the test pressing. Since it is for a fundraiser, they're selling them at a tremendously higher price than the regular pressings, because they think that the real collectors are going to want to go for those, which they do. And then they'll toss in signed things there. But older test pressings, I've only ever seen a couple come through the store in the past 7 years or so. So they're tremendously rare. They're a great find if you can get them. And just the collectible nature of them, they may not be worth a ton, but the fact that that in the Bob Seger case, I've got one of maybe 15.
It's just fun.
Cool.
Yeah, it's what collecting's about. It's about you get something that's just fun, and to you it means the line's like, yeah, look at this. It's just something cool.
Did I say 1 of 15?
One of 15.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. All right. So that's the pickups this week. As always, we will put a link to a Spotify playlist for some of the songs that we've talked about, maybe some of the other stuff that we'll talk about through here. So make sure you look for that in the description. We'll also have that up on our Facebook page. But I do need to mention that Bob Seger, a lot of his older stuff is not on Spotify.
Yeah.
So that's just part of the agreement there. You'll have to use your imagination as far as what's on 7, or look it up and find it elsewhere. But yeah, that one I can't. I've already checked.
He still doesn't want to put it out there. He just does not like that older stuff.
No, and you're not getting reissues of some of these older ones either, other than the early cameo stuff and Ramblin' Gamblin' Man. But that whole series in between, Noah, Brand New Morning, 7, back in 72, those things you think would be ripe. I mean, ripe for reissues, but maybe someday.
Yeah,
have to wait and see.
Maybe maybe when he passes, I mean, then the estate will go, okay.
The estate will probably look what they did with Prince and just about everybody else. They'll just say it's time to let these things loose.
Yep.
And I don't know if Bob Seger did a motion capture or not to live on in hologram status. Yes.
I would gather yes. It seems to be the thing.
It's all the rage.
Yes.
So onward now to Record Store Day, the behemoth of an event that's taking up the bulk of my time. This is going to be an odd RSD for you too, because you're still in flux.
Yeah, I have to decide where I'm going to go. I mean, obviously Denver has record stores, but I have yet to visit one. Just work has me busy, and and I haven't had a vehicle either. Now I could take my kid's car and go wherever, and they don't have a problem with that, but. Yeah, I just haven't, but I will head out. I'm not going to stand in line, but I will head out eventually.
See what you can get. Now, Record Store Day is, as of the recording of this, less than a week away. It's coming up on April 20th. And from the record store owner, and a lot of folks, you know what Record Store Day is. It's about lines. It's about having fun with other music lovers. It's about finding that specific release that you're looking for. Well, for record store owners, it's a whole nother animal. I hinted a little bit about the stress of waiting for shipments, and having run the store now for the past 7 years, it's a given that occasionally, not terrible, but occasionally things will get damaged in shipping. With Record Store Day, that there's a whole nother level of just nail biting, because if a box gets damaged in shipping, and you end up having 30, 40 records that are toast, it's not like they can just be replaced on a whim, especially this close.
Yeah.
So you've got that inherent, oh, geez, man, I hope everything's packed right. I hope it's going to make it here. And again, for the most part, it does. Knock on wood, we've not had a problem with that. But, right, as of the recording today on Sunday, I think that we are only about maybe 2/3, if not a little under 2/3 of the way there.
Okay.
They're cutting it awful damn close.
Yeah.
We've got a bunch of stuff, but I've also been tracking. I've got stuff coming on Monday. I've got stuff coming on probably Wednesday, Thursday, and then late stuff getting here even on Friday. And some of the big stuff that people have been requesting, like the Olivia Rodrigo, Noah Khan 7-inch, not here yet.
Wow.
I think that's getting rationed a little bit too, even though, what do we say, they're pressing 15, 20,000 of
Yeah.
those darn things. I think that the demand is through the roof for that stuff. The other big one, the picture disc that no one needs, but everybody's going to want, the Fleetwood Mac Rumors. That has not shown up yet. I've got a lot of people looking for that one.
Okay.
So when you dear viewers, when you think about going to your record store for Record Store Day, just give a little bit of a nod to what the owners are going through to get this put together for you on time. And then a lot of folks have entertainment. You're working on promotions, trying to get that up and out. It's a crazy couple of weeks leading up to it.
Yeah, but it's the excitement, and keeps the record collectors kind of pumped up and going. You see all the videos. I mean, I may even do one yet this week. I haven't done one yet on Record Store Day on what I'm looking at, but yeah. As we talked about that already. I didn't have a huge thing on my list, but then you watch other people's videos. Go, ooh, that does sound good. Ooh, wow, I may need that.
After the fact, you're going, I think that might be something cool to get.
It happens every time, and then you go out and there it is. And and I have found in my travels, at least through Michigan, I could find a lot of it. You would sell out, but some places would buy too much. And generally, if you just take some time, you can find it, instead of jumping onto the internet and buy what some flipper is going to sell you at, expensive price. Kind of sit back a little bit and wait for the dust to settle.
Some patience, especially too, that record stores proper. Part of the pledge that with RSD that we sign, we're not allowed to sell the RSD releases online until 24 hours have passed.
Yeah.
So you won't start seeing official Record Store Day sales online from official record stores until Sunday morning at the very latest. So they have to put that back.
Yeah. And so I'm saying patience from the guy that bought the Cramps Bad Music for Bad People and didn't check because he had no patience. So, maybe don't listen to me. Who knows?
We're also starting to get lots of inquiries. Ultimately people will call, do you have this? What are you getting? My favorite one this week was a call from somebody said, can you tell me what you've got for Record Store Day? And I'm like, dude, we've got hundreds of them. It'll be easier if you tell me what you're looking for, and I can tell you if we've got it or if we're about to get it.
Yeah.
So that's going to happen as well. But it is an exciting time. The demand, I wanted to mention, we said the Olivia Rodrigo and Noah Kahan 7-inch. The other things that I think are in tremendous demand is another Noah Kahan release that is coming out. The 1975, I've got some folks piquing some interest on. The big one by far, and I feel really bad about this, I've announced it a little bit, but not as much as I should on our page, was that Beatles 3-inch record player, that little mini record player, and the Beatles releases that came with it. You saw that? Did I ever tell you what the price point was on that?
No. Well, you might have. It was stupid.
It was about $180
for a 3-inch.
For a 3-inch turntable and three or four releases. And it's playable on one side. And they did this a few years ago. They released that mini turntable as a
Jack White.
Yeah, the Jack White stuff. And there's been other subsequent 3-inch releases. We sold a few of them from time to time during the events. And somebody brought one back in just because I'd never heard it. It sounds like crap. I mean, it is not a listening experience. It's a collecting experience for that.
It's like a Crossley. It's worse. Well, it's worse than a Crossley.
Those are the people who make it.
Yeah.
So they're connected. How's that? It's the same kind of distributor, but I think it is connected. So here's the thing. The demand for the Beatles turntable this Record Store Day was through the roof. And when I went around to finally got to try to order them, I'd contacted the company. We'd dealt with them before and we were still on their list. They, on that day that I contacted them, had cut off all orders because of demand. They said, we're going to reopen it in a little while. Well, they did, but they didn't. And ultimately, every single store that requested, if you could go in and request 30 of these things, from what I've been told, every single store that got them only got 2 of the Beatles turntables, and that's it. They rationed them out like they did that Randy Macho Man Savage.
Which it kind of showed up later.
It showed up many times. So maybe they'll start making some more of these, but ultimately we didn't get any here at the store.
Well, Beatles fans are a special group, and they're very, they want all things Beatles. I mean, I just, Taylor Swift fans are like that right now. We want all things Taylor, but Beatles fans, they definitely are. They want it. So
And that's
I'm not
great. And I wish
surprised.
we could help them out because I did have a few requests here, but we're not going to get those at least this time around, and we'll see what happens. But
Well, I feel good that I was not one on that list. I mean, I appreciate the Beatles, but
yeah,
a 3-inch for that, considering how much vinyl goes into a 3-inch.
yeah.
Jeez.
But I mean,
Wow.
it is again for the collectible nature of it, and it's something you're going to put on your desk and show off to somebody once in a while. And hey, listen to this, and they'll, hey, that's cool, and then it sits there.
I'd rather take out that secret test press and go, look at
Yeah,
this.
there you go.
Yeah.
And think of it this way too: how many other releases, especially on RSD, could that $180 buy you?
Mm-hmm.
Two,
Yeah, very, very cheap.
maybe
That's
three.
about right. Yeah.
Depends
Oh,
on what they
yeah.
are.
Yeah.
So the other thing I wanted to touch on really quickly as well is just some of the nonsense that popped up the day before Record Store Day. The traditional release day for new releases is on Friday, since
Mhm.
Record Store Day is on, well, it's on 420 this year. Go figure. We're talking about putting out a bag of or a table of Munchies, Doritos, and stuff on that. But on the 19th, there's actually a fairly couple of large releases coming out just
Yeah.
to make our lives a little bit more hectic. The first of those being Taylor Swift and her brand new one, Tortured Poets.
Mhm.
And I think we talked about this a couple of weeks back too with my frustration, but not, it is what it is type of frustration on the fact that these went up for pre-order on her website, which is her prerogative, but also to the big box stores at least a week, if not more,
Yeah.
than was made available for us. So that anybody that wanted to pre-order it early put in for it. Now, there's this other thing that's popped up, at least one of my distributors. I do have enough. We've got several pre-orders for that here at the store, and I'm ordering some extras for the people that ultimately will come in and get them. But one of my distributors has put a little notation on the side. They're saying not available to order, which gave me a little bit of
Mm.
a sidestep going, okay, now why would they do that? My pre-orders have been in for them for a month now, or
Okay.
whenever they open it back up, whenever they open it up to us. But now they've pulled it off to stop the ability for people to add more to the orders. And I think what they're doing is they're waiting to take stock to see how many they've got coming in
Sure.
before they farm them out to the record stores, the smaller stores like ours. So I'm hoping that we're going to get at least what
Mm.
we asked for, because at this point, unless they open it back up for some reason, you know, tomorrow when the shipments have to go out,
Yeah.
we're going to get what we get on them.
Which would be too bad, but it just seems again, contracts get signed with these big box that are
Yep.
worth millions and millions, and so they're going to be able to do that. They got the power and the
Yep.
clout.
It is what it is. Now, the other thing that's a real head scratcher, I think we talked about this too, was the Pearl Jam release,
Yeah.
Dark Matter. That is a Record Store Day release on this very, very cool looking colored vinyl, like a black and yellowish orange swirl vinyl. But they're releasing it the day before on black vinyl. I think I asked one of my distributors, I said, what is the thought process on this? And they're scratching their heads too, saying, we don't know. Yeah.
Personally, I think it's just the fact that, again, Pearl Jam has a huge fan base. So
Yeah.
many of them, I want it that day. I'll buy that black version. I'm going to have that, but the record store day, I got to go get that one. You sell too.
And they're the same price
Yeah.
and a day apart, which though this has resulted in, I've had a couple of people asking about it. And then when I, up front, transparency, hey, this is coming out on Record Store Day. I don't know how many we're going to get. They said, well, I'll take my chance. I'll just wait. They didn't want to pre-order the black vinyl version and take a chance on getting the Record Store Day one.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens on that. I mean, as of now, I don't have any pre-orders for the black vinyl version, but I think that's going to be readily available and throughout there.
Yeah,
And then
probably so.
then the final headache the day before Record Store Day,
Mhm.
because it's not going to be busy enough then, is the fact that Pink Floyd album, remember the clear vinyl Dark Side of the Moon, was supposed to come out, I think, the week before the eclipse that went
Okay.
across it was a little south of us here. You didn't get to see it in Denver, did you?
No, actually stepped out, just, a little, no, it wasn't a full.
It wasn't. We were like 90 some percent up here in
We
mid
weren't
Michigan.
even close to that.
It was cool to see, and I won't be around for the next one, but I think that they were originally timing that. I'd like to think that they were trying to time that Dark Side for the release
Yeah.
and then have the eclipse happen across the portion of the country. but it got delayed. Can you guess when it's got delayed to?
Friday?
Friday, the day before Record Store Day.
I
So
got a pre-order on that one.
Pearl
Dang it.
Jam. Yeah, you do. Pearl Jam, Taylor Swift, and a Pink Floyd on clear vinyl that no one needs, but everybody's going to want because it's so darn cool looking.
So here I am, kind of poking at the Beatles fan. Guess who bought another Dark Side of the Moon to go with all the Dark Side of the Moon? Yes, there we have it. Yep.
And we will open one up for quality control
Yeah.
purposes here at the store as well. But
At
so
least it's not a 3-inch.
that's true. That's
Put
true.
Dark Side on 3-inch for the total experience.
And the audio quality is supposed to be pretty phenomenal. So we'll see. And if it looks as cool as that the promo pics make it look, I think we're okay with that.
Yeah.
So, but the audio quality, that's important. You kind of sort of need a good turntable to play that on, don't you?
Yeah. Yes, probably do.
At least
Segue.
Not a Segway, not a Crosley, hopefully. But no, I don't want to knock Crosley, but you don't want to be playing $50 records on a Crosley.
Yeah.
Just especially the suitcase ones. I think that they're trying to improve some of the Crosley Stylus at least.
Mhm.
But we had a request on was it on the Facebook page or one of the YouTube
I
comments
think one of the YouTube comments.
asking us what kind of turntables we have and what turntables we use. And Steve and I got thinking, it's like, well, we use turntables that we think sound and look cool.
That's right. You know, my turntable happens to be one after the flood someone gave me. It's here, I have a turntable for you. Well, all right then. You know, so that's a great turntable. It was a Radio Shack Realistics, and
Which are cool.
yeah, it is. It works great. And how about you?
Well, you know, as a record store owner, I probably should be more well versed. But this was the same way when I did and worked in video, and when I taught. I can understand the technical side of things, and I can talk a little bit about the technical side of things, but it's not a real deep understanding for me. I know how it works, and I know what I like in something to make it work right, but I can't really dive too deeply into them.
Yeah.
Personally, I think. Well, I don't think I know. I've got 3 turntables that I use. My main one here at the store is my personal Technics. I've got an SL 1200, the MK one that is probably 30 years old. This is an old radio station model, so it's a DJ model, not the scratch DJ, but although it's very similar.
Okay.
But this is that real heavy duty direct drive turntable with a really good platter. And I worked on the Technics SL 1200s all the way back in the 80s when I did radio. We had a couple at the radio station in Northern Michigan when I was there. And so when I don't even really remember what kind of turntable I had before this one, but I picked this one up probably about 25-ish years ago. And I've had it refurbished and tuned, and it looks great. For me, that's a nostalgia one because I worked on it so long in the 80s.
Sure.
To have one personally is just, it's the way to go. I've got a separate preamp, a real commercial grade broadcast quality preamp, but I don't need it because I've got a decent receiver to go along with it. Second one is I've got an AudioTechnica, the LP120. I've got one of those here at the store as kind of a demo, but I use it because it's got a USB output on it so I can ingest things and capture digitally if I need to for our YouTube channel. But we sell the AudioTechnica line here at the store, and I've had some LP60s open. But the AudioTechnica is a very, very good line of turntables as well.
Yeah.
And that LP120 is really a direct look-alike knockoff of my Technics, the SL1200. Okay. It looks a lot like that, although the one, the AudioTechnica I've got is a black model. And then thirdly, I've got a turntable at home. I've got another Technics. It's a SL, forgetting the exact model on there. It's a lesser one than the 1200, but it's a good home stereo model. It's another direct drive. And again, I just like the looks of that, and I like the Technics line of it, which is also a cool one too.
So if I'm hearing this right, at home you have 2 turntables, and do you have a microphone?
Yes. Actually, I've got 2 turntables here at the store, and this microphone.
And there's the microphone.
That's there. At home, I've just got the one turntable.
All
so,
right. Okay.
Yeah, the end score for me then is 2 Techniques and 1 AudioTechnica.
Okay.
And the AudioTechnica is pretty much a demo model that we show off. And we were talking with Kim, the producer, and I don't remember what I had. I had another cheaper off-brand model before I had the Techniques.
Yeah.
but it seems like I've had it forever. The thing, it's a boat anchor. I love it. I will never get rid of it. If it ever breaks, I'm going to be so sad.
Well, I
But
always like my very first turntable because I could stack like 6 albums on it, and it would
yes,
just drop them. When the one's done, it'd go and
yep.
drop the next one right on top of it. Talk about convenient. You could be listening to records forever.
And I see the remnants of those turntables, the effects they have on records, because when you drop,
Yeah.
you're dropping one that on a record that's already spinning.
Spinning.
So it hits, and then it takes a second to grind whatever is in between them to catch up. So when I see those records come through, it's got the telltale sign. I recognize those scratches as they come through. But when I was a kid, I had a suitcase model, whatever they were. It was a cheap one at that point in time. That was my first. I do remember that kicking in. My family at one point had one of those big consoles as well. And then at some point in my late teen years, I ended up with one of those component systems, one of the all-in-ones that had the turntable, the receiver, a cassette deck, and probably an equalizer. It was a cheaper brand, like a Kmart or something like that.
Before I went to college, I wound up buying, component systems and that have, just something cooler than that crap I had as a kid.
Now, as far as recommending turntables, I'm going to have to, I'll defer to you. You've got an article, because the salesman side of me is going to say AudioTechnica is the way to go, and they are available at Radio
There we have it.
Records, but I don't want to do that. But for me, that's a good brand. And what I like about the AudioTechnica line is the fact that, they've been around for a long time too, but they've got a several level of they've got entry level ones in the LP60. You get into things like the LP3 and the LP120, which are either a utilitarian DJ model or another home model in the LP3. Those step up in price. They step up in their capabilities to handle different cartridges and stylus, where in the LP60s, it's just interchangeable stylus for a couple there. And then the AudioTechnica line goes all the way up into the $2,000 to $3,000 range with some of their high-end ones as well. So for me, I think that that's a good brand, because it allows you to really kind of expand within the line if you want to.
Yeah.
But there's others that out there, and I know folks swear by some other turntable brands.
It is. They're actually, and and this, anybody can go on. If you go online, there was it's an article from it's called Tech Radar, and it's best of 2024 turntables. And they really look at it. They look at it from anywhere from the best budget turntable to the one that would be good for hi-fi, high fidelity. And it was a really neat article, and it goes through the pros and the cons of each turntable. But it all starts when you're looking for one is, what do you really want? I mean, what's the most important thing to you in a turntable? Because you can, when you just think about your budget, it can go anywhere from $50, for something really cheap, to over $10,000. And so, and some people, they do want that. It's important to them. Look at this turntable. It's the coolest thing. It's kind of like a little Beatles thing. Look at this turntable. It's the coolest thing. But a couple of things that, I think that are also important. One is called, damping, controlling the vibration.
Yep.
A more expensive turntable tends to control the vibration a lot better, which gives you the sound quality. Obviously it's going to weigh a lot more, but it's going to, keep, you're just going to hear things better. Now, my ears aren't, to me, that's not as important of a thing. You know what? I probably couldn't tell, and they were even saying, for these high-end turntables, they are really good. You really do hear a lot more. But if you don't have really good records, you also hear that part of it. So if you have a collection and you've been buying a lot used, you have some of the older ones, and you say, I really need a high-end, you're not going to get the enjoyment out of those records. At least I personally don't think so, unless you're buying those, those one steps, unless you're buying the Blue Notes, the special, ones, the special audiophile recordings,
the high fidelity stuff.
Yeah, you need to buy that, I think, to really, to really enjoy it. I mean, there's other things, the more expensive you get, they'll have Bluetooth. They'll be Bluetooth compatible, so you can use it on your headphones.
I have a thought there.
Uh-huh.
I purposely don't carry Bluetooth, and Audio-Technica again has the line of Bluetooth.
Yeah.
For me, the convenience of not having to have your turntable close to a system or speakers because of the physical wire connection is outweighed by the fact that you're defeating the purpose of an analog signal by converting it to digital with Bluetooth.
True.
Now, I know that Bluetooth is great and there's not any kind of signal degradation enough for our ears and your ears to hear. So the convenience factor becomes almost, do you weigh the convenience against traditionalism? I
Yeah.
guess is a good way to put it. That's just my 2 cents right
Sure.
there.
No, it makes sense. The more expensive you get, they're going to have USB ports.
Yep.
Where you could start to record. Now, I used to have a turntable. I had USB, and I thought that would be great. And I could hook my iPod up to it to record. It was terrible. I mean, just awful, the recordings, and it would be so light. And then all of a sudden, something I recorded from CD would come on, it'd like blow your brains out. It's like, whoa.
Well, and that's because a lot of these USB turntables still did not have a preamp built into them. Again, the LP120 that I mentioned that I use does have a preamp built into it. And I think the tripping point for a lot of folks that would say, this harkens back to the days, and I did this too, when you had the component system. I had that little kind of a multi-layered sandwich of a component system where you could put on a record and record it right to your cassette, all in the same system. And we would do that. You would take your records, put them on cassette so you could listen to them in your car. And then eventually you'd say, okay, I want to burn it onto a CD, but then how do you get your record into a computer to burn it to a CD? But then you have to use a separate software like an Adobe Audition or the Freebie and the Audacity, which gets a little daunting for folks to use.
Sure.
As far as converting.
Okay.
But I think streaming has really done away with the need for saying, I'm going to back this up onto a cassette or a reel or a CD to have in my vehicle, because now even vehicles aren't coming with CD players anymore.
They're not. Exactly. The more expensive you go, you'll have anti-skate.
Yep.
There'll be, it's kind of funny that a lot of times the more expensive ones, you have to change the belt on the speeds.
The Orbit, the U-turn. We used to carry the U-turn here at the store.
Yeah.
Great turntable. It sounded great. It came with an Ortophon cartridge and stylus, which they sounded cool. And they looked neat. The old U-turns had the belt on the outside of the platter, which was tremendously cool until the belt stretched, because you'd have to physically move. They've since fixed this, where it's you don't have to move the belt so much anymore to switch, which was probably a big complaint. But every time you'd switch to a 45 RPM or 33, then that belt would stretch a little bit, and ultimately it wouldn't spin at the right speed. And I think that's a big complaint with a lot of belt drives turntables, especially when they get aged up a bit. You're talking some turntables now in the 30 to 40 year range. How often do you replace the fan belt on your vehicle?
Yeah. True.
It's something that needs to be, and the little tiny belt on a turntable is going to stretch over time, or crack or wear over time.
Yeah. Well, when you look at the more inexpensive models, those are, really, they're ready. They come out of the box and you're ready to play.
Yep.
You don't have to sit there and do all kinds of different things with the control arm, trying to set weights and everything. And so if you don't like to mess with all that stuff, you just want to hear the music. To your point, what they said, the best budget turntable, which was for $219 on Amazon, was Audio-Techniques AT-LP60.
Really?
XBT.
Okay.
They said.
Yeah, the LP60. Well, the BT stands for Bluetooth in this instance. So that's why that's a little more expensive. The regular LP60 models come in at around 150.
Yeah.
And those are all the belt drives. And typically you're going to see belt drive turntables be less expensive because there's less technical gear inside for the direct drive.
Yeah.
And then I've always read that the argument that you go from is the belt drives are going to be quieter because it's a belt drive system, but they're more susceptible to speed issues. Whereas the direct drive is more reliable for speed, but you introduce the need for dampening because that electric motor and the gears create vibration and or sound going through them.
Yeah.
But you pay a ton more for direct drive turntables.
Didn't you say you didn't know much about this?
I don't. Maybe I do, I guess.
But you're right. That's what we're talking about. Yeah, in there, when people, they talk about, the right turntable. I mean, just as important is the right set of speakers.
Yep.
I mean, and the needle. The needle becomes so
Yep.
important to change that out. And I mean, I kind of forget to change my needles. I mean, I play my story a lot. And like, oh, I should buy that, right?
Your turntable sound will let you know when it's time to replace the stylus. Typically speaking, it'll almost sound like you're listening to something through a paper bag that's been crinkling, and your stylus is starting to go.
Until you get old and
Yeah.
you just figure it's your hearing going out. It has nothing to do with that. I just don't hear as well anymore.
Now, I had an interesting little conundrum about a year ago with the stylus. I had been using an old Shure cartridge on my Technics, the main one here at the store, the 1200, and I would replace the stylus, and it was a Shure stylus. I'd replace that, once every 6 months or so, because normally speaking, I mean, you're a heavy user of your turntable, typically when it's up and running.
Yeah.
How many hours would you say you put per week on a
Oh,
turntable?
wow. 3, 7. I would have to say 30 hours,
30.
maybe.
Okay, and that is well above average, I think, for most people.
Yeah.
I, on the store turntable, probably put in 40 plus hours a week, because it's running here at the store. We play records in a record store, so
Mhm.
that turntable is running. But during the pandemic, I had difficulty replacing stylus because everybody was buying them out.
Sure.
And I found it more and more difficult to get the stylus that had been part of my the cartridge for as long as I've had this turntable. So what I ultimately ended up doing was, because I have access to the AudioTechnica gear through our distributors, was I got an AudioTechnica cartridge and stylus to go with that, and I replaced the entire system in this turntable, and rebalanced and did everything in that fashion. But then I found out that the stylus that I had gotten with the cartridge had a really limited lifespan of maybe 300 to 400 hours.
Yeah.
And so really after a month or so, I started saying, this is sounding like crap. I've got to do something. So I tried a different stylus that fit that cartridge, another Audio-Technica, and I got maybe 500 to 600 hours out of it, but it still wasn't good enough to maintain something that's running, a work week through there. So I actually called Audio-Technica. It took a little bit to get through to one of their engineers, but after a week or so of playing phone tag, I finally talked with an engineer from Audio-Technica, and I told him my problem. I said, here's the deal. I run a record store. I'm running a turntable. This is what I'm running. This is the cartridge I've got. You got to help me get more life out of this cartridge. Where do I go? And ultimately, and I forget exactly which one that I landed on. It's one of their newer style of elliptical. It's a nude style. I'd have to go back and look to see what it is, but I'm finding I'm getting probably about 2,000 hours out of it now,
Okay. Wow.
which has stepped it up tremendously. But still, you think about it, that stylus, the tip, whatever it is wearing into the groove of the record. Every time you play, you're wearing out your record, you're wearing out your stylus a little more. And the more the stylus wears, the more it's going to wear the record. And that's why, when we talk about some of the cheaper models, especially, and I don't mean to pick on the Crosleys or the Victrolas too much, but a lot of those that popped up in 2019, 20, and 21, when everybody was buying turntables for $50, came with a ceramic tip stylus on there that just did not seat into the grooves as well as a good stylus did. And so I would get people bringing records back, again, those Crosleys, those Victrolas, and that really crappy stylus on them, they're great for $3 and $4 records. The used ones, you could buy them. They're great. But I had people buying new 180 gram records. Somebody brought one back in. It was a Kiss record, a 180 gram, and they're not always 180. This is probably a little heavier than that due to a mispress or something like that. He brought this Kiss record back and said, there's something wrong with it. I'm playing it. It's going real. And at first I thought it's just Gene being weird, but I put it on our turntable and it was fine. And I said, so what kind of turntable are you using? He was using a Suitcase Crosley or a Victrola, and the record was actually too heavy for the belt to drive. And so you weren't getting 33. It was probably getting closer to a 16 speed on it.
Wow.
So more stuff to keep in mind. But yeah, your point of the stylus are going to wear out, and it's very important to make sure that you've got something that is going to balance your needs.
Yeah.
Does everybody need, and I paid a little bit more for the stylus, but I'm also would pay more in the long run if I had to replace the
Sure.
stylus every 2-3 months.
And to me, I think a key point is what you just said is the need to buy more records so you don't wear out the grooves in the ones. If you don't have very many records and you keep playing, you're wearing those grooves out, darn it. Buy more records so you can spread that out and it will just save your records.
I like your logic.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
So what else is in there?
Well,
You're
you know
pointing out-
what they said, was the best in this article. The best turntable is called a Project.
Project, yep.
JEC, a Project. Debut Carbon. It goes for $599 on Amazon.
Okay.
It's automatic speed, so which I thought was great because even last night I played something that was 45 at 33, had to change it. So what happens today? I didn't change it. I put on a Pink Floyd, the very first Pink Floyd at 45. Not quite what I was expecting. So this automatic speed would be great. It doesn't have Bluetooth or USB. It's just, they said, a very good quality sounding turntable.
I think nowadays you don't need to worry too much about USB turntables. It is just kind of a fad that is sailed on that. One other point I wanted to make too, everybody is, you talked about the speed of the record. A lot of new records, not a lot. Occasionally you'll find that they'll put them at that 45 RPM on a 12-inch album. Again, we've talked about this. It boggles the mind where you think you'd need to stretch out an album over 2 records when it would fit on one, just because you're going to say you're going to get a little more audio file out of the higher speed, which theoretically you can, but it's negligible for me.
Yeah, to me, it's just, hey, we can charge more.
So
but that's just me.
Most new turntables now are going to be just the 33 1/3 RPM or the 45 RPM, and that'll handle the 12-inch and the old 7-inch 45s.
Yeah.
There are some turntables out there, you have to do some digging, that will still play the 78 RPM. Now, the 78s that was the speed in the 20s, 30s, 40s. I mean, earlier on, until they started really kicking into the 33 1/3. So mostly with the 78s, you're going to see those 10 or 12-inch shellac records, the older style ones that have 1 or 2 songs on them. I get questions once in a while about, does this go to a 78, or where can I play my 78s? And the answer is, you're really going to have to find an absolute vintage table from the 50s or 60s that handles the 78. But that being said, that LP 120 that I mentioned, the AudioTechnica, does have the capability to kick up to 78 RPM. It doesn't show it on there. You have to actually press the 2 33 1/3 and 45 at the same time, and that lights up a 78 speed. There's your turntable hack. Okay. So you can get into that.
I have there's a guy I know within the vinyl community. His name's Martin Jones. He's out of Detroit, and he has a thing that every album should be a faster speed. Now, he can control completely the speed on his turntable. Yep. So everything, he just likes to pump up that speed. He goes, nah, that's how he listens. So, he has a total control of whatever speed he wants to put on. So I don't know what kind of turntable, but it's pretty cool.
DJs will use that. My Technics, my Technics 12 and the AudioTechnica LP 120 have a pitch control. And you can get a few more RPMs up or down, and DJs will do that to match beats. Radio stations, little known fact, back in the 70s and 80s, this, you may not know this, would use pitch control to speed up songs so they could fit more songs in an hour. Okay. They'd speed them up a little bit and hope that you didn't notice, just so they can say, we're playing 30 songs an hour. Well, yeah, you are, but you're speeding them all up a little bit.
Yeah.
One more speed, and I don't know if you ever knew this. Have you ever run across a 16 RPM?
No.
These that's true old school. The older 12-inch, I think they used to make 12-inch shellacs. In the era of 78s, you could get 16 speed so that they could fit more content onto a record. But I have never seen a 16 RPM come through. It has been since my early radio days since I've seen a turntable that can handle a 16 RPM. But that was a thing at one point in time.
In a couple of years for Record Store Day, there's going to be a Beatles 16 RPM, and it's going to have be able to get a Beatles 16 RPM record.
Please don't go there. But as far as 78s go, if you were to ever find an old Victrola, especially the hand crank, those would go at 78. But the power of the spring. It's not a proven capability to maintain that 78 RPM when you're using a spring to spin that platter.
Sure.
So the weaker the spring or the more that it wears down,
Yeah.
it's going to go. But it's still fun.
Yeah.
So best advice for folks looking for a turntable?
Research, and it really comes down to what your budget is. I
Yep.
mean, really think about your budget, because I say it goes from, as Jim would say in here, $160, which you can get a very good turntable, and you can get a top-notch quality one for 2,000. I mean, you don't have to go to 10. That's only for those of you that like some kind of architectural piece that when people come in, they just go, "Oh my God." look at
Something with
that."
tube amps hooked to it to really show it off.
Yes, exactly. So,
yeah.
the best thing, again, like anything, is to do your research, but also, you got to consider your speakers that you're using, what kind of speaker wire, and of course your needle.
Yep. And but again, your overall budget. And the great thing about that is that the records you get, with the exception of 778s, but the records you get will be playable on just about any turntable.
Yeah.
Word of caution though, and I do this at the store, if I have, and I don't mean to, this is going to sound a little odd, but when people bring in records to sell and they're newer records, there will be times that I'll ask, what kind of turntable did you play these on? Because that's important for me in determining the value of something that I'm bringing in for resale. Sure. If something was played on an AudioTechnica with a decent stylus versus something that was played on a suitcase with a ceramic stylus, because that damages those records. And therefore, I mean, they're not going to sound as good. But for the most part, whatever records you get are going to travel with you. And then later in life, if you want to step up to a $500 turntable or a $2,000 turntable, the great news is those records will still be working on that turntable.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Just there's such a nice, there are so many out there, and it can be mind-boggling. So pull up and look at some of these articles. I said, I thought this was an excellent one. I just know my next turntable has to have this automatic speed, because I just I keep screwing that one up.
You don't want to listen to somebody going,
yeah. I don't know how it knows though, because I can't tell in some of these, is it 45 or 33? I don't know. Even when I play it, I go, wonder which speed is right.
We didn't even get into things like linear tracking or anything like that. That may be a subject matter for down the line once we do a little more research.
Yeah, my son just brought. I told you that he found at the pool shop. He found a linear tracking turntable there. He goes, "Hey, Dad, you want that?" All right.
And those are good, but they're an odd animal, because most turntables the arm is going to swing. If you think of it like this, the arm is going to swing in as you reach the center of the record, but the linear track travels across it. And I've got to do more research on the specifics of how that works. But the cool thing about linear, and what I think I told you about yours, is this was the early stages of track by track programming. A friend of mine in college had a linear track turntable, and you would put the record on the platter and then press 3, and then a little laser inside the tone arm would find the breaks in the track. So you could actually skip tracks automatically, by program tracks automatically with some linear turntables.
I could finally buy that Starship album
and skip.
They built the city, and I can enjoy the rest of the album. I know I keep going back at that, and some of you really like that album, but I could just bypass it. All right.
Perfect. Well, I think that we are up on time for this week, good sir. And you know what? This has been such a fun ride having you here in store. And I know that the past, you were here a couple of weeks ago, but this is truly it. This is the one. The rest of it's going to be over the internets.
If it's not, I'm probably going to court for something.
If you get called back.
Exactly.
Well, in that case, we'll still have to do it online from your cell.
Yes.
So I hope they give you access. So you folks have been talking. You've been listening and watching to two guys talking about records, a Vinyl Community podcast, in store for probably the last time, but we'll keep it going otherwise, Steve.
Yes, we will. We definitely will. This has been fun, and we appreciate everyone, especially all of you new people that have been joining in, and the comments. It's really been great. More and more people have been interacting with us. So thank you for that.
Make sure you do that. Head over to our Facebook page. Just search for Two Guys Talking About Records. Maybe after Record Store Day, when things calm down, I'll work on other social media aspects of this. We'll see how busy life treats me out there. Best of luck with the move, sir.
Thank you very much. Yep, looking forward to getting it all done.
I bet you are.
It's supposed to rain that whole day that we're moving, of course. The only one day of rain this week when we're moving.
Well, good luck, and we'll talk to you again next week. We'll talk to you folks again next week. We hope to, if you're settled in enough, we'll see where it goes. How's that?
I'll be settled enough. I'll still be in my kid's basement, but we'll do it.
All right, you folks have a great week, and we'll talk to you next time. Until then, I'm Jim. If you haven't guessed, I'm a record store owner who's really kind of at its wit's end this week with Record Store Day.
And I'm Steve, just a record collector with no records.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.